week 2, Top Notch Talk. I'm Logan, field supervisor over at Top Notch Heat and Air Conditioning. Here's Brandon Smith, head football coach at South Warren. Big win last week against Bryan Station, 56-35. What was your overall thoughts on the game?
I thought it was really kind of a typical first game. I thought we looked inexperienced and young in spots, but the bottom line is our guys did a really good job of responding to adversity. I think every time there was some adversity in the game, we came out and responded and we matched it. And I liked our overall intensity. We got a lot of things to clean up, a lot of things to work on. Penalties being one, turn the ball over too much, a lot of little things. But again, that's typical for week 1 stuff. But the bottom line is we came out with a victory against a good team.
So going into the half, scores 28-17. What adjustments did y'all make at the half to come out and score 21 points in the third quarter?
Well, to be honest with you, going into the half, I was not happy. We were sitting there 21-3 with not a lot of time in the first half, and we had a turnover that directly, and then a big play the next play that led to a touchdown, and then we scored, and then we had a dumb penalty that caused us to kick off 15 yards back, and then we gave up a kickoff, a return there. So that was not a good sequence. Again, that's self-inflicted things that, it's not so much them, more us doing it to ourselves. So at halftime, there was a come to Jesus moment about cleaning things up and not doing things to ourselves. And did it get better the second half? Not really, but that's honestly, that's usually how it goes. You're not going to fix it in the game. It's more of a preparation during the week. But like I said, they did respond nicely and continue to put drives together and answer every time that we had to.
So offensive side of the ball, 516 total yards, 230 rushing yards, 286 passing yards, and 56 points in week 1. Quarterback Camden Page was 15 of 22, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was super efficient with the ball, having a 68% completion rate. How big of a role did that play in the offensive success?
Yeah, I thought for his first game, he did some good things. He had some big plays. And I thought offensively, it was one of those things where in talking to some of the guys, offensive guys on staff, and afterwards, and I feel like we got so much to fix, and yet at the same time we managed to score 56 points and have 500 plus yards, even though it really didn't feel like that because I just am programmed to see the things that we got to fix. But I thought for the first game, he did, like I said, he did well. I understand, and there were several guys out there playing the first game where they're going to make mistakes, they're not going to think clearly, and hopefully that improves as the season goes along.
Yeah, 56 points. So we'll get to that here. Running backs had a big day, 230 total rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and 5 total touchdowns. Caden York, 85 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jameer Board, 78 yards and 1 touchdown. Having 230 rush yards and 5 total rushing touchdowns, we have to give a shout out to the guys who don't score touchdowns, which is the offensive line. What did you think about their production this week, and how do you see them going forward?
Yeah, I thought we had a lot of what we call MAs, missed assignments, but really probably that group did the best. They didn't have too many, and I thought they were probably the most consistent group offensively with their assignments, and we like to play a little faster, a little more aggressive, but I really thought they did a nice job throughout the game, and that showed up because we were consistently able to run the ball when we wanted to run it and when we needed to run it.
So receiving, Jake Carter, 8 receptions, 173 yards, 0 drops, 1 touchdown. It seems like Camden and Jake found a connection this week. Is that something that you guys seen on staff, so y'all knew going into the game Jake was going to have a big week, or did it just kind of unfold the way, when the game just kept going?
Well, Jake is a returning starter. He was a star player last year, and so that's kind of he's moved more into that's what you expect. Not as many good jobs as used to be. Now it's more this is what we expect you to do, and he did it. To his credit, he had a big game, and we need him to have a lot of big games this year.
So we'll get on to the defensive side of the ball. Drayson Moore, 10 tackles, 5 being solo, 5 being assisted. Taquan Darden, 8 total tackles, 4 being solo, 4 being assisted with a tackle for loss. Isaiah Bridges, 7 total tackles, 4 solo, 3 assisted with 1 interception. Defense held them to 93 yards and 130 passing yards. Bryan Station only completed 4 passes on 12 attempts. What would you say led to shutting them down through the air?
Yeah, I thought our secondary is probably the most experienced thing we have defensively, and I thought outside of one big play through the air, they did a pretty nice job. We had 3 interceptions. I thought Zay had a really good game. He's returning starter, and he's kind of moved into that. That's what we expect type mentality. It's just big plays, and that's one thing that's been Achilles heels for us is letting people big play us. So that's something that is really going to show up in the next couple of weeks if we don't correct that.
Yeah, so the defense, they also had 2 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, 4 total turnovers. How important is it to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage, get turnovers, and then make the other teams, force them into long down and distances?
Yeah, anytime you can get negative yardage, that's what you're going for. From an offense perspective, when you get negative yardage, it really kind of kills your play, or I'm sorry, your drive. And so defensively, we try to be aggressive. We try to get negative yardage plays, and then turnovers in football are king. Whoever wins the turnover battle usually is going to win the game.
So upcoming week this week, DuPont Manual, they won their first game 42-0. They're ranked 13th in the state of Kentucky by Max Preps. Their running back, Jerry and Trainer, rushed for 149 yards and 4 touchdowns. The staff putting a big emphasis on stopping the run game this week.
Yeah, Manual is a really good team. You're going to have a hard time finding a better roster in the state of Kentucky than what Manual has. They just got talent and ability everywhere. They're really well coached. They're disciplined. They kind of got that perfect combination of talent and discipline. And so they're really good in the run game. That's the quarterback can run it, and the running back, he's a 3-year starter. For my money, I think he's the best running back in the state. I think he's that good. And so the offensive line is outstanding. So it's going to be a tall task for us.
Yeah. So fan question of the week. This is from Rachel Vaughn. What game are you most looking forward to this season?
I mean, to be the next one. In all seriousness, though, I like these big games. We're going to find out where we're at this week, because, like I said, there might be some teams as good, but there's not going to be anybody out there a lot better than Manual, for all the reasons already said. So it's a big game, it's a big atmosphere. You're going to get to find out where your team stands, in terms of a big dog status, in the state, because that's what we're playing. So these are my favorite type of games, is these big atmosphere, where you're going to get tested and you're going to find out what you got.
So we got 2 player of the games, one for offense, one for defense. The offensive player of the game this week is Caden York. He had 16 rushing attempts for 85 yards, 111 total yards, 5.3 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. The defensive player of the game is Isaiah Bridges, 7 total tackles, 4 being solo, 3 being assist, and 1 interception. So don't forget to come over to our Facebook page, like, share, comment. Also on YouTube, make sure you go subscribe. You can see the videos there. At the end of the season, we will be giving away a free unit, so make sure you're like, share, comment, and subscribing so you can be in the drawing for that. So that wraps up this week of the Coaches Talk.